One of these days, my transitions will get a little bit better. But hello, everyone, and welcome to another Q&A Corner presented by HiTechU. My name's Andrew. I'm so excited to be your host for today's interview, which is yet again another spectacular interview with an amazing alumni of the University of Victoria who's doing some pretty spectacular things in the world of biomedical engineering, of medical related science. There's some cool stuff that we're going to be exploring today, and I'm so thrilled that you decided to drop by. So before we make the big introduction of the person that you already know, it's the person you're really here to see, just a little bit about Q&A Corner and what this whole how this whole thing is going to work. So if it's your first time, welcome. This is Q&A Corner, interactive industry interviews presented by HiTechU, which is an initiative of the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Victoria. This is your opportunity to connect with leading experts in their fields, doing cool, amazing, fun, and innovative things in the technology space. As we're going through today, obviously a lot of the conversations that are going to happen will happen here on Twitch and will be kind of prompted by things that we've received, but you are here to interact. So not only are you here to watch, but you're also here to ask questions. So over here, that way, over here in the chat, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. If you're watching this on your phone, maybe the chat's down below, and feel free, throw questions in for our special guest who will be here to answer those questions. And otherwise, we'll just be talking about some really cool things related to their journey into the tech industry. And so with all of that said, I am excited to now kind of take away the focus from me on the screen and introduce our amazing, spectacular, wonderful guest. I'm so pleased to welcome Laila Abelseth to the Q&A Corner for today. Laila, how's it going? I ask this knowing that you may not be able to unmute yourself. Let me I will. There we go. That should work.
Hi, Andrew. Nice to be here. I'm doing well. You know, but it's a Thursday. Pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely a Thursday. I gotta say, every time that I do one of these Q&A corners, I always realize just how seldom that I get to reconnect with people, and how now in 2021 the reconnections are all happening where everybody else can see it. So this is all for my benefit, but other people are able to take advantage too. So thank you so much for being on the stream today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So I think to get things started, there's an ulterior motive here. One is I'm gonna put over and make sure that everything is working on the other screen, I should say, as well. It gives me a chance to make sure the stream is working on the other end with a question that I will pose to you, and maybe one that'll help all of our viewers kind of start to pose their questions, which is maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background and what led you to where you are now as a co-founder of a pretty amazing biotechnology company here in British Columbia.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'll start with kind of my educational background, because that's where it all started. So I have a Bachelor's of Biomedical Engineering from the University of Victoria, and I'm currently pursuing a Master's in Engineering Management from UCLA, but that's kind of beside the point. So while I was doing my bachelor's, my undergrad, UVic has a mandatory co-op program, and I was lucky enough to get a co-op with Dr. Stephanie Willerth in her stem cell and tissue engineering lab. And it was an incredible experience. I got to learn all about cell culture. She does mostly neural cell culture, so learning all about the brain and its components, learning about the cells. And then from that, I was able to get into 3D bioprinting, which is something that her group focuses on. And during this co-op, I started to develop the Bioink that Axolotl Biosciences was founded with, along with her PhD student, Laura. So then I ended up completing 2 co-ops and then my honors in her lab. I worked kind of continuously with the Bioink 3D printing with Dr. Willerth and Laura. And then last year at the beginning of 2020, it kind of came up that they wanted to start a company and they asked me to be a co-founder. So that's how Axolotl started. So we incorporated in March of 2020. It's been an incredibly interesting experience incorporating a tech company during the pandemic, but it's also been super cool and super exciting.
So I'm interested, was that the draw then, sort of going through this process to jump into that engineering management degree? You were like, I'm gonna like practically learn while doing, but also go and find out? Or was that already on track for you to kind of go that direction?
So I was already in the degree when we started the company. I found that when I was done my undergrad, I had like a pretty good understanding of the technical side of engineering, but I like really wasn't sure about a lot of the kind of management component that goes along with it. And I was thinking to myself that that was something that I was interested in. I could like really see myself kind of being in more managerial positions in the future, and I wanted to get a better understanding of that for myself. So it did start kind of before the company, but it definitely is beneficial now that the company has started up and I can kind of apply the skills that I'm learning in my degree to my career.
I love it. So I'm curious, so for our viewers, and if you're just tuning into the stream, if you got the notification, you're like, oh my God, I forgot about this thing. We're here with Laila Abelseth. She's a co-founder of, I'm going to pronounce this wrong every time. It's Axolotl Biosciences. Axolotl. I knew. You know what? I got through an entire Q&A corner about a month ago where I mispronounced both the company name and the guest. It was not a good scene. So we're on the right track now. We're here and talking about this amazing new startup here, and you're here on Q&A Corner. So this is here for you. If you're watching the live stream right now, this is your opportunity to ask questions. If you've ever wanted to know what it's like to found a biotechnology startup, if you're like, what the heck is biotechnology? If you're wondering what Bioink is, if you just like followed the clickbait that I put out to try and get you here, then that's okay. But now's the time to answer some questions. And we're having a conversation. We're gonna talk about a lot of different things, I hope. But really, we're here for you. So make sure, feel free to use the chat, throw things in there. We've got a form up on the website as well where you can do it. If you just shout into the ether, there is a possibility that one of us may hear you and we could answer your question. And you never know. It could just be that there's some telepathy that's there. So, I guess with that said, I'm curious if maybe for our viewing audience, you can explain like so a lot of people don't understand what engineering fundamentally is, but I think we've done a lot of streams where people are starting to get an idea of what engineering is all about. But where does engineering management come into it? Like, I think when I think management, I think of like, you ever seen Office Space, that movie where there's like the guy drinking the cup of coffee and he's just like standing there telling people what to do? But I feel like it's different in the engineering world.
I would say it's very similar. Kind of business management and engineering management. I can maybe naming some of the courses that I've taken in my program.
Yeah.
So it's I did like an operation and supply chain management course. I did a management communication course and some like statistical analysis courses. So it's all like things that are kind of inherent in business. I think the difference between the like engineering management program and say like an MBA is that you're kind of looking at it from a technical perspective. So the idea is that you're going to be managing these incredibly smart people doing technical tasks. So it involves like a little bit of that. It's kind of like integrated in there a little bit. But I think like the fundamentals are very, very similar between like engineering management and business.
Now I'm interested. So you've worked, you're connected, you're doing graduate studies now, but you've obviously worked with in the academic environment for a while. Do you think that there's sort of, not necessarily in your world, but obviously in the world of biotech startups that are out there, there's a lot of academics and researchers that are going into business. Do you think that it's something that you just inherently understand, or is it something that like really needs that that development? Like, did you find it was an easy step for you to go from that in the lab, I understand how this works, to like trying to convince these brilliant people, like, no, you need to follow this process versus this process kind of thing?
No, I would say it wasn't easy at all. I think myself and the two other co-founders at Axolotl all struggled a little bit with kind of like getting our getting into the business mindset. It's a very different kind of set of processes to take a product to market instead of just like developing it in the lab. There's definitely lots that we had to learn, and we had to learn it kind of while we were doing it, which made it extra challenging. But we have an excellent kind of like group of advisors that we've been able to accumulate who will like help us out and are obviously there to answer any sort of questions. So it has been a learning process, but we're making it through.
So what? So okay. So that maybe that feeds into this, and I want to jump back and explore kind of your journey a little bit more. And I'm sure there'll be some questions in chat that come up about that. But what exactly does Bioink mean? Like, what are you selling? And I mean, I know because I'm lucky enough to have been able to see some of the work and the research that the team has done. So I've got a little bit of an idea. But maybe for those who think of 3D printing as like plastic on plastic, maybe, yeah, like what is Bioink and how does it connect with that 3D printing world?
Yeah, for sure. So 3D printing and bioprinting are very similar. It's kind of in that like printing word. So if you think of regular 3D printing, you're essentially just building up a 3D structure, kind of like layer by layer, starting from the bottom and going up until the structure is complete. Bioprinting is pretty much the exact same, except you're using biological components. So that's where the Bioink comes in. So Bioink is this kind of, it's a gel. It's made of like hydrogels, which just means that it's kind of a polymer interconnected material that contains a lot of water. So like a hydrogel. It kind of has the consistency of like Jello when it's fully printed. So you're just taking this gel, putting some cells in, maybe putting in some microspheres. That's one thing that we do that I'm sure we can talk about later, and some like other biological factors. And then you're just laying it down layer by layer, making kind of the 3D biological structure that you want.
See, now you've got me excited. You said biosphere, and I'm like, I just picture like like an elementary school biology diorama of a cell, and that's all that I can picture in my mind. But I feel like it's probably not that. What is a biosphere?
Sorry, it's microsphere.
Microsphere. Sorry. See, things are popping into my head, and I'm just like, I need to know. So, what is the microsphere?
Yeah, so one of our co-founders, Dr. Laila Vega, she just graduated from her PhD, and her PhD was focused on kind of developing these microspheres. They're these tiny, like micro-sized particles. So if you think of like a millimeter, a micrometer is 1,000 times smaller. So they're super, super tiny, and they're kind of the scale of like 3 to 5 micrometers. So they really easily go into the Bioink because they're so small. And what happens is we can encapsulate different drugs inside of them. And then while they're sitting in the 3D structure that we've bioprinted, they're able to release the drugs and kind of provide the drugs to the cells. And they just slowly dissolve over time. So like they continuously release the drugs while they're sitting in the Bioink.
So then I'm curious, what's the use case for that? And it's got a question of like, who's buying this? Like, I feel like this is not for your lay person. There's other pieces there, but why would you want to have this sort of like 3D printed thing with drug? Is it for testing? Can you actually put those cells inside of a human body? Where does that end up?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's definitely for researchers. So we, in Dr. Willerth's lab, we've been looking at like neural tissue engineering, but it's not like we have a ton of brain cells to just make these structures out of. We have to start with a different type of cells. We start with stem cells. So stem cells for those of you who don't know, are cells that can kind of indefinitely replicate themselves, so they can create more stem cells. And then they can also become any other cell type in the body if they are exposed to the correct kind of factors. So that's where the microspheres can come in. You can incorporate different drugs or different factors that will be able to promote the stem cells to differentiate into the cell type that you want. So we start with our like regular stem cells, we mix them into the Bioink with these microspheres, and we use in Dr. Willerth's lab 3 different drugs to differentiate them into brain cells. So we use one drug called premorphamine, one called retinoic acid, and one called glucosterone. And we'll incorporate different combinations of microspheres with these 3 drugs, and it'll just tell the stem cells, hey, you need to become a neural cell, and then they'll slowly start making that transition.
So this sounds so space age. This sounds like something that like 5 years or 10 years ago, well, 20 years ago, certainly people would have been like, no, you can't do this. There's so many things. This is like cutting edge research. So where does the business model come in? Because I can imagine that it is cutting edge, so not everybody has the ability to do the kind of work that you're looking at with not only the bioinks, but even just the whole process.
Mm-hmm. So that's where Axolotl really that's kind of the root cause of why we started Axolotl. Is it is difficult to figure out these processes. It's difficult to develop a bioink that doesn't kill the cells, that the cells enjoy living in, and that also is printable with your bioprinters. So we were able to develop one that worked really well in our lab. So we thought, why not kind of share this and help facilitate this research elsewhere. So Axolotl was really set up as a company to kind of support researchers doing this kind of cutting edge bioprinting research.
Well, and it's so cool, right? Because you think so often the case is if the research is done and then that intellectual property goes to somebody else who then makes money off of it. But here it's like literally the research that's being done is directly going in to support the business, and then it just goes full circle because that's supporting the next generation of researcher. So that was like that, but that was a purposeful thing when you were building out the company, was to support those researchers in the same way that I'm sure that kind of the research labs receive support elsewhere.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Dr. Willerth is obviously like a professor. She's a professor in mechanical engineering at UVic, and her background is academic. She loves being a professor. She loves doing research. She loves teaching. So it's really just kind of getting her knowledge, our knowledge, to her peers, essentially. She does have a wide network of researchers, talks to them, knows their struggles, and it's really, I don't know, I think we're all feel really privileged that we might be able to help them with their research.
It's so cool. And so I'm curious, so obviously the startup world is a very different one. You've got 3 co-founders, all 3 of you super impressive. What a cool set of backgrounds. How does that work? Is one person responsible for the day-to-day and another person is responsible for, or is it something that's kind of just as you're all working in other jobs, you're doing this kind of off the side of your desks because everybody's got these other things that are going on? What does that look like for you, or how do you split that up as well when you've got 3 really talented co-founders that could probably do all of the things?
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Willerth, Stephanie, is our CEO. She does have the largest role in the company, which is incredible. She does so much work, and it's actually incredible to watch her do company stuff, research lab stuff, and be a professor at UVic. And then Laura and I are kind of more on the science side. So we will support our employees, help them develop experiments, help them prep materials for presentations or meetings. And then we also contribute on the business side. kind of a little bit, but Stephanie more so takes over a lot of that kind of like business stream of things, because she's just incredible at it. Day to day, the main Axolotl team is our incredible employees. We have 2 full-time employees right now and some part-time co-ops and some work study students, and they work super hard and have really been like instrumental in building this company and continuing research efforts while we're trying to do all of the incorporation stuff. And it's actually, we wouldn't even like roll without them. They're very, 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 very important.
That's incredible. So like the company's only a year old, like started during the pandemic, and you've got 2 full-time employees working for you. That's crazy. That's so impressive. Plus like such an incredible team that's leading the show. So I guess that'll kind of transition into the next question, which is, did you see yourself here? Like when you were, I mean, obviously our audience is, there's a lot of high school students that are kind of here, that are watching the stream, that are popping in. Did you see yourself as like a co-founder of a biotech startup? Did you see yourself like even in biomedical engineering? Like, was that something that you even knew about when you were in high school?
I definitely did not see myself as a co-founder in a biotech startup. And honestly, in high school, I didn't even really know what engineering was, if we're being entirely honest. In high school, I like really didn't know what I wanted to do with my future. I didn't know what sort of degree I wanted to go in. There was lots of things that I found interesting, but I wasn't really like drawn to one over another. And kind of until I saw the UVic Biomedical Engineering program, I grew up with my dad is a mechanical engineer. He did that for his undergrad, and then he became a doctor. So he worked as a doctor my whole life. So medicine was always kind of around me growing up, and I was really interested in it and I did want to do it, but I learned very early on that I could not be a doctor because I pass out every time I see blood. It just like wasn't going to happen for me.
Fair enough.
So when I saw the UVic Biomedical Engineering program, I was like, wow, that's kind of like medical adjacent. That's like maybe the closest thing you can be to a doctor without actually being a doctor. So I applied and got in, and I absolutely loved it. Going in, I did not know really anything about engineering or what engineers were or what they did or even what biomedical engineering was. I thought that it was maybe just something that I could like get into, and I did. And I was very, very fortunate to love that undergrad and be able to connect with Dr. Willerth's lab and kind of start on this whole journey, because it's been an absolute blast. It's been so much fun.
I love that. And I feel like this is the message that we keep getting. So if you're watching the stream and you're a high school student and you're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life and I'm super stressed about it, just relax. It will be okay. You'll be fine. Look at where you can end up, like in a few short years after graduation, helping co-found a really amazing startup. If you're just tuning into the stream, because I know we got a few new viewers that have popped in, welcome. You're here at Q&A Corner. We are here talking all things career and business development and education backgrounds, and we're here for you. We're here to answer your questions. Well, not me, because I'm not really important. I don't really know what's going on. The person you're actually here to see is the person who's right over here, which is our special guest, co-founder of Axolotl Biosciences, Laila Abelseth. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get some questions that are coming in. I'm going to check my inbox while I throw this next one at you. What was the hardest thing that you found about the undergraduate experience when you actually got in there? So you didn't know what you wanted to do in high school. but your dad was a mechanical engineer and a doctor. You saw this as kind of the medical adjacent thing. Like, what was kind of the I guess rose and a thorn of the post-secondary experience? Because you're in a job now, obviously, that you need that research background, but there's so many people that maybe don't, and they're questioning whether post-secondary is even valuable for them. So I'm curious, what was your rose and thorn of that experience?
Yeah, so I think the hardest thing about my undergrad experience was really the kind of transition from high school to undergrad. And I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, but it was a big shock kind of coming out of high school and your life changes entirely. So I grew up in Calgary and then I moved to Victoria for my undergrad. So it was the first time that I had like left home, was living on my own. So that was a change in itself. And then also the workload was just, it was way larger than anything I'd experienced in high school. So I really had to learn how to study and how to manage my time and do my work effectively. But one of the great kind of privileges that I had during my undergrad was I made some really, really solid friends in my program in biomedical engineering. So we kind of were able to support each other. I really enjoyed that program because it was split kind of like 50-50 men and women in the program, which is kind of unusual for engineering. But I really appreciated it in biomedical engineering because I was able to have kind of a large friend group, lots of girlfriends. We hung out all the time, studied together, did our assignments together, and were really able to support each other. So I think it it will be hard, I guess, going from high school to an undergrad, but really finding that support group is the best thing you can do for yourself.
So that's kind of a good transition piece, because we had a conversation. So on Monday we had Dr. Heather Buckley from Civil Engineering on the show, on the stream, and we had a little bit of a conversation from sort of her perspective. But she did she was a chemist. She went through and did a chemistry degree, not necessarily the engineering piece. And so you touch on something that's very relevant, also in particular because we are Monday was International Women's Day. This is International. I didn't realize when we were even planning out the stream that this is International Women in STEM Week, which is super exciting. So I'm curious, what was that experience? So obviously you had a unique experience. Is that one that is that's uncommon? Is it changing? Like, have you seen a shift in sort of the diversity conversation, or what diverse looks like in engineering in the last little while? Because I mean, I guess in sort of the last piece, like you're a really impressive team, three spectacular co-founders who also all happen to be women is pretty amazing. Just the company itself, but then there's that extra amazing piece of a team of spectacular female founders. So I'm curious your take on it, because I'm coming to this from a very privileged point of view as a cis white straight male. So.
Mm-hmm. I do think the space is changing. I do think it's getting more diverse, albeit kind of slowly. Like I said, at UVic, biomedical engineering is split pretty much 50-50, but it is one of the smaller programs. And still there is like a huge like male presence kind of in the program as a whole. It's kind of an interesting topic, I think, because it's so important to get that diversity in engineering. Like, engineers kind of affect how our whole world is run. So if you don't have all of those diverse perspectives going into making those kind of decisions, making the designs that advance the world, it's really going to benefit certain groups over the other. So I do think it's really important. I think it's changing a little bit, but all changes like do take time. I think the most important thing that anyone watching this stream who might want to do engineering, who maybe doesn't fit into the typical kind of like look of an engineer, like a white male, is to just Google engineers and find a role model that looks like you, because there are so many incredible female, so many like incredible engineers from different races and ethnicities that you can find and really take inspiration from them. You don't necessarily just have to stay in your own backyard to find these role models.
Awesome. Super. Yeah, like such valuable advice. And there's a question that came in by email kind of as that conversation was happening, which I don't know if they knew that that was going to come up, but they wanted to send it in anonymously. And the question was, how do you find that mentor? And I think maybe they're like noticing that obviously a lot of the success that you found is through maybe the mentorship that you found within like your peer group and through professors. Like, how do you find that in your own community, in your post-secondary environment?
Yeah, it can be challenging. I think I was very fortunate to find Dr. Willerth and Dr. Vega, like my two co-founders, as mentors. And it really was just kind of chance. I had a lecture with Dr. Willerth, and she just struck me as this incredibly intelligent and, I don't know, just amazing individual. And I was like, I want to work for her. So I asked her for a co-op and she said yes, which I will forever be grateful for. I think for somebody who is looking for a mentor, I mean, programs like High Tech U are great because they kind of connect the high school community with a bunch of different like individuals in the community. So it kind of gives you exposure to like a bunch of different people. But I think really just like finding someone who you think would be interesting, finding someone who you want to learn from and just reaching out to them, because sometimes you won't get the response that you want, but sometimes you will just get like a very positive response back and the relationship can just continue from there.
So have you started to experience that where people are now like reaching out to you and saying like, hey, I'm really interested in getting into this field. You seem like somebody that I can look up to. Like, has that started to occur to you now that you're in a position where people I'm sure are looking up to you? And again, sort of as some context to those that are on the stream, Laila and I met while we were both working for an organization called Science Venture, an amazing outreach organization based at the University of Victoria. So obviously there's a lot of mentorship that comes from there, but are you starting to see it more where people are reaching out, or do you find that especially like young people, maybe teenagers, are apprehensive to do that?
There might be a little bit of apprehension, but I have been contacted by a few kind of teenagers in the Victoria community, and I've been happy to reply to them and give them advice. Also, like undergraduate students in biomedical engineering, I've been contacted in the past about like, how do I get a co-op, or like, can you connect me with this other person so I can ask for a co-op? Things like that. And I'm always happy to do it. And I think a lot of people always are. So yeah, if anyone on the stream wants to reach out to me for advice, feel free. I will try my best to offer it.
That's a good segue too. So yeah, if you are interested, so we're here on the stream, we're here on Q&A Corner, you're here. It tends to be, it's always like these quiet ones, they send in anonymous things, but people are like I see the viewers afterwards because they don't always show up, and there's like 20, 30 viewers that are on the stream, and I'm like, oh, you were so quiet. I guess we're asking all the right questions. But if you are interested in connecting, on the website, there's a direct link that's there. You can check that out. If you are interested, is there like, if they're on social media, like can they tweet at you? Can they TikTok you? Like, what are ways that students can get in touch if they want to reach you? Or is email the best way to reach out?
This is gonna make me sound old, I think, but I absolutely despise social media. I just have never gotten into it. So email is probably the best way. But I can, if there is a page that you're sharing contact information with, I can give you my email to put on there as well.
Awesome. So yeah, if you're interested in checking that out, I'm just in the chat right now throwing in High Tech U. So there's the address, and I'll just pop over quickly because I've got my screen share window loaded up. And look where it happens to be loaded up, right onto the Axolotl Biosciences website. But I'll just show you if you're interested in getting in touch a little bit later on, which is awesome. You can jump over here. And look, there is in our past events and upcoming events, and there's a connect right here. And this has got a link to LinkedIn, but I'll also throw an email address in there afterwards. So if you're looking to get reconnected, you'll have an opportunity. So yeah, thanks so much for putting that offer out, though, because I know people sometimes get nervous and then they're like, oh yeah, I could totally see myself having a conversation with this person.
Yeah, totally. I'm happy to chat with anyone.
So I'm also super curious in terms of that advice that you give to students, because so another piece about High Tech U, we tend to have a lot of people that are on the so they're on the edges and they're wanting to jump in a little bit earlier. So if they're coming and going through our program, they've got an idea of where they want to go, and they maybe want to get some experience working in that field. What's kind of the advice that you give to undergraduate students or other students who are interested in pursuing a career to kind of end up like where you are, or they just want to get hired by a lab? Well, I guess maybe that's the first question, is like, if a student that's a young student is looking to get experience in a scientific environment, what are the things that you think they should really focus on to prepare for those jobs?
Sorry. That's
good. No, it's good. I literally jumped to like 4 questions in there as I got to the one. So if there's a student, like a high school student or an undergraduate student, who's looking for like advice from somebody who manages folks that work in a lab, what would kind of be your like top advice for those students?
So I think it's going to vary a little bit between high school and undergrad. So for high school students, I would say just start reading. Start reading papers if you can access them, or even like articles in science magazines, and really just get like acquainted with the industry that you want to be in and learn a little bit about it, so that when you do get into university, you kind of have an idea of where the research is and what you're interested in. And then for undergrads, once you are in university, I think the best thing you can do is just try and volunteer in a lab. So locate some labs within your institution that you're interested in and just start reaching out to the professors. And a lot of times they will say no, but if you keep going and try kind of like a few different groups, you're bound to find somebody with open space who wants to volunteer. Another great option if you are going to UVic is UVic has a work study program. So this is specifically for, I guess it can be undergraduates or graduates, but it's professors who apply for these positions that are funded by the university, where students get a certain number of hours just to do work in their lab or with their research group. So those can be like really great opportunities for students to just kind of dip their toes in, get a little bit of experience in a lab, figure out if it's what they want to do, and then hopefully roll that into like a volunteer position or a co-op or a job in the future with that same lab or same research field.
Very cool. And then I guess on the other side, like, what is, if somebody's looking at potentially getting into more of the business side of things, of like running that, and I mean, obviously, even from our conversation before, you are more on the science side of things, but you're incorporating a business. Like, what are kind of the things that you think they should start to get up to speed now while they're in high school to prepare them for, or university, to prepare them for getting into that world of business?
So if you want to, I guess, start your own business, oh man, this is so hard because I don't know if I can give any advice, because I kind of started it pretty blind. I didn't really know what the whole process was and have kind of just been like learning on the go. But I would say just do your research with like what actually goes into starting a business. What are the steps that you need to take to actually get everything done? And then I think the base of any business is the idea. It is kind of like the product that you're going to deliver with your business. So if you have a really great idea for that off the bat, it's really just building that foundation and learning how to kind of transition it into the business world. If you want to just get into business and like maybe just work at a biotech company, or even just like work at like a regular engineering company, I think choosing a university program with a co-op program is a really great thing to do, because co-ops let you have kind of like mini work opportunities in like 4-month increments, and you just get to try out jobs in the industry or try out jobs that you're interested in. And those can be like research related jobs or business industry related jobs. And I think those give you really great opportunities to just see if it is what you're interested in, and also develop some experience and the skills that are going to like help you get jobs in the future.
Very, very good advice. See, I know you're learning as you go, but it's still like super, super valuable advice, which I think is amazing. Oh, so I love Sixers Fan is back. So Sixers Fan is one of our folks that came on for our stream on Monday and had never been here before. So welcome back, Sixers Fan. Question for you is, what is the right educational mindset to have for engineering? So what's the right mindset to have going into engineering?
Mindset, it's, I think, all about, oh man, actually that is a hard one. That's a very like good question, but it's very like challenging to approach. I think it's really important as an engineer to be kind of continuously learning and continuously improving your skills. It is going to be very technical, so like kind of math heavy. You'll need a lot of kind of critical thinking ability and be able to apply all of the theory that you learn into kind of a real world application. But it is super important to just keep developing those skills, keep learning new things, keep kind of refining your idea of what engineering is and what where you see yourself in the future and what your job is going to be and how you're going to approach it. It's always just about learning, I think. Hopefully I answered that okay.
I think so. That was a really good answer. I'm like, there's so much advice that I wish that when I was in high school, I'm like, man, I wish that these things existed, but it would be very pixelated and there would have been a lot of stuttering. I feel like both you and I, when we were like, this just didn't exist that was out there, right? When this kind of stuff was going on. And I think now what I love is there's a more broad audience of folks as well that are out there that are doing really, really cool things. I remember like all of the presentations by like CEOs and co-founders when I was in high school were all these kind of like 55-year-old white dudes that drove like Bentleys, and they were just like, they were so disconnected from my reality even. And so I think it's so spectacular to now see like younger co-founders that are doing things, and co-founders of different backgrounds, and co-founders that are coming to it from different angles and doing different things. Like, I think diversity is like more than just gender and color and socioeconomic background. Like, it's so many things. And I feel like these situations are really, just evident of how to make this more accessible to people. So thank you for being awesome. That is basically what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. No problem.
So another question, Sixers Fan. I love Sixers Fan. Thank you so much for coming, Sixers Fan, again. And I think this is going to be an easy one for you, but what is one type of engineering that you think is interesting or cool? Now, I think that I know the answer, but I'll leave it to you to maybe answer Sixers Fan's question.
I mean, obviously, I think biomedical engineering is super cool because that's where my background is. But I think in another life, if I were to like have to choose a different engineering, I would probably do software. I really enjoyed programming when I was in my undergrad. I even took an extra programming class just for fun. It wasn't even for like a degree requirement. I just took it for fun because I wanted to program some more. So.
Oh, fair enough. Sorry, I'm like reading the chat things that are coming into at the exact same time, but I love that. See, like you don't need to necessarily just be in love with kind of what you did. So the question there, and this was the question that we got on Monday as well. What was your like interest? Like, what did you really want to do when you were in high school? Because I know you said like you weren't sure what engineering was, and you didn't really know that medicine, or you knew that medicine might not be it for you because you fainted. What did you want to do? Like, what was kind of your initial thought of what you would do in high school?
Yeah, I really wasn't sure. I couldn't really see myself in any sort of job. I had a really hard time visualizing that. Um, I guess I think like earlier on, like more like elementary school, I was interested in being a teacher because I did. Um, I tutored people in junior high, and I loved like teaching dance classes and stuff. So I maybe saw myself doing that, but it wasn't really. It didn't kind of excite me enough. I guess when I was doing science venture, it was a great opportunity to kind of try out being a teacher, but I still think I'm happy with engineering that I chose.
Yeah, it's nice. I feel like everybody should get a taste of teaching, even just to realize that it's not really what they want to do for a career. But I gotta say, like, I think there's something really cool to be said, because one of the things that I keep hearing and talking with industry partners is one of the things that they really, really value is people that can help and train and mentor. And I think that's something that, like, even just the teaching mindset brings to the table is like, I would love to have you as a boss, because you're focused on education. You realize not everybody gets it the first time. So yeah, I think that's totally something to be said. So this is an interesting one. So I'll give you some context on Sixers fan, if that's okay, Sixers fans. So Sixers fan's a middle school student going into high school, really focused on trying to figure out the type of engineering, wants to be an aerospace engineer right now, and so is thinking like, what's the most important subject that they would need to know if they want to get into that. And I don't even know kind of what your knowledge base is on aerospace engineering, but I'll throw it over to you for that answer.
I do not have a strong background in aerospace engineering, so I'll disclaim that right now. I guess it's going to be hard because I did do high school in Alberta, so I'm kind of more familiar with what kind of class options you have in high school in Alberta as opposed to BC. And it might be the same, so I'll just talk on my experience because that's kind of all I can speak on. So in Alberta, you get to choose which sciences you do. So you either get to do like biology, chemistry, or physics, and you only have to choose one to graduate. But I would say if you're looking to do engineering, definitely do the physics, because that will be a lot of your first year in engineering, kind of regardless of what program you choose. And then if you are more interested in kind of engineering that involves any of like the biological aspects, like biomedical or the chemical engineering, kind of also do those sciences. As well, if you can do calculus in high school, I would strongly recommend that. I was able to do calculus in high school, and it was absolutely amazing because in high school, I learned everything that was taught in my first year calculus class. So I could kind of slack off in that class in university because I already knew it, which was a great time saver, in all honesty, because I did not have to put as much work into that one as I did all my other classes.
Awesome. We got more chat stuff going on right now. This is so exciting. See, people just needed to get time to get warmed up to it. So yeah, so the real Mugatu, all things math will benefit you, math, sciences, computer science. So just our chat is supporting your focus on really getting into the calculus stuff when you're in high school. So hopefully Sixers fan, that gives you an idea of like what you should consider. But I mean, I think what you said before about the mindset is kind of almost the more kind of valuable thing there too, right? So we're on the tail end of our interview, which is super sad. It's like at this time, for these interviews always go so fast. But I always like to make sure that I leave time for like the stressful thing, which is I always like for the last minute, there's like a question that I ask everybody that's like the sound bites that I give out, and the pressure of not knowing what it is seems to add to it. But before we get to that stressful thing, now that I've warned you, I'm curious, what is kind of the coolest thing that you've had the opportunity to do in the world that you're currently working in at Axolotl? Like, is it the business side of it? Is it a specific like thing that you've been able to do with stem cells? Like, what's the coolest kind of thing that you've gotten to do in the job so far?
Oh goodness. This is a hard question because there's so many things that I have loved and enjoyed and appreciated. Oh man, I think the coolest thing is probably just doing the cell culture and working with cells. It feels like an experience that is kind of unique, and not everyone is gonna have it. And it also is very satisfying to do cell culture and keep these little things alive. And then when your experiments work out, it's all the better because you've kind of achieved your big goal. It's also definitely cool to be published. I was very fortunate to get published on a few papers during my undergrad, and that was a really kind of just cool thing to experience. I guess to add one more thing on the axolotl side, maybe not the coolest thing, but the thing that I've enjoyed the most about it is getting to work with my team. We have kind of an incredible team of employees who are super innovative and really hardworking and kind of give it their all the time. And I appreciate them so much, and I've enjoyed working with them so much. It's really kind of incredible what we've been able to accomplish.
Amazing. So yeah, I think what I want to do is then jump into that kind of last really stressful question. Are you ready for it?
I guess.
So if you could put all of your most salient advice to a person who's looking to get into this world, what would kind of your core most in like a minute, the best advice that you could give a young person now who's looking towards a future in the world of biomedical engineering? And I'm gonna put you up on the main screen right now, so that you are front and center for the answer.
Sure. So I would say if you're looking to get into biomedical engineering, if you're looking to get into kind of like biotech, it would be to kind of find a mentor and start working with them, start developing your skills, start learning from them, because that will be so beneficial in your future. So I was so lucky to find mine in Dr. Stephanie Willerth, but also Dr. Laura de la Vega, my two co-founders. They were incredible women to work with, and I learned so much from them. It's honestly been so beneficial in my like kind of whole life and shaping me as a human being even. So that would be my biggest advice.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So we're almost to the end. But for those of you who are here that have tuned into the stream, and you're like, what's going on? What is this logo in the corner and High-Tech U and all these things? You've tuned into Q&A Corner, interactive industry interviews. We are here with a very special guest, co-founder of Axolotl Biosciences, Laila Abelseth. Thank you so much for being here today. To all of our viewers, Laila, to you as well. And if you want to know more about about High-Tech U, you can find us at hightechu.ca. We're in the corner. What if they want to find out more about you?
Oh, pardon? I think you...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I did cut it there. So what if they want to know more about you, Laila? What if they want to find more about you or more about Axolotl, where can they find that out?
So you can always go to Axolotl's website. It's axolotlbiosciences.com. We also have an Instagram and a LinkedIn. I also have a personal LinkedIn. It's not very well populated, but you can definitely go check it out if you want like a kind of basic overview of my background. And then Andrew mentioned it earlier, but he's going to have kind of a link, I believe, on the High Tech U website with some contact information if you want to just like reach out and ask any questions.
I definitely did. I also realized that like every single pronunciation that I've been making today is terrible. So this is my fear. This is my hell. Yeah, we've got up on the screen here. Axolotl is here, the Instagram page. So get on there, like it, follow them, check it out. We're gonna have more information on the High Tech U website as well if you want to find out. So all the links are going to be there. If you tuned into this and you really enjoyed it, and you'd like to learn more about the field of engineering, we are back again tomorrow at 5 with Yuvilla Franco, co-founder of another biotechnology company, but with a different flavor. So tune in here again to the stream tomorrow to check that out. Otherwise, Laila, thank you so much for being on the stream today. This was such a pleasure to get the chance to connect and to have the opportunity for some of the youth that are out there to ask some really awesome questions and for you to share a little bit of your journey and to share a little bit about what Axolotl, I'm getting it right now. We're getting it now at the end of the stream. I'm getting it right. Is doing in the world of biotechnology. You're doing such cool things. You're doing such amazing work. Thank you for sharing that journey with us here on Q&A Corner. And I guess before I'll give you the last word before we get off. If you had you wanted any final things you want to say to our stream audience?
I just want to say, thank you so much for having me, Andrew. Thank you to everyone who came out and watched the stream and asked questions. And I hope you all are able to find something that you love and find your passion somewhere.
Amazing. And with that, we've reached the end of our stream. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow here at 5 o'clock. And so as always, be kind, be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you next time here on Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. See you next time.